everybody. Well, welcome to Red Grace Media, everyone. My name is Emilio Ramos. It's good to be with you guys. I'm joined by Micah Whitehead, as always. And Micah, I have a great advantage over you today.
As always, we haven't seen each other in literally probably a month, maybe.
Yep, I know. Ever since your exile to London.
Yes.
And then I'm now in a voluntary exile at Newport Beach. You can see the beautiful palm trees behind me and suffering over here for the sake of the kingdom. Matter of fact, I just got back from Balboa Beach. If you're familiar with Southern California, it's where I grew up. It's where my roots are. It's beautiful out here. It's nice and cool weather. Actually, today is the warmest day of our vacation down here, and we go back tomorrow. And my understanding is that Texas is greeting us with its traditional severe weather forecast. And
yeah,
you know what that means? That just means there's a good chance that I might have to postpone returning back to Texas, and we might have to actually extend Newport Beach. I don't know.
Yeah, good luck to you on that one. That's not something, of course, I have to travel to California just a few weeks, but I definitely plan on coming home to Texas, just like my London adventure, where I kind of got stuck in London for an extra couple of days, but it was very, very grateful to get home to Texas, where God shines truly upon his people.
Yeah, that's right. Well, people ask me, why do you do vacation in Southern California? It's like, well, first of all, we don't go inland more than like 5 minutes, so that's the key. Just stay literally right on the coast.
And if you've ever been around Emilio is happy with a bacon cheeseburger from Carl's Jr.
Yeah,
if you put that in front of him,
Western bacon cheeseburger, and no cheese, well done. That's how I've always done it. I don't like cheese on my burgers. If they had a Western bacon burger, that's what I would order. But I don't do cheese.
It's the well done part of it, man.
I know, well done. Just burn it, just char it. Oh. That's the thing. I like my burgers the way I like my theology. Well done.
There you go. So anyway, is this kind of been more of a family thing? Has it been more of a spiritual retreat? Kind of what's been going on with you?
Yeah, I mean, we always try to be spiritual, you know what I mean? But
you have to be with that beautiful sunshine.
Yeah. No, it's just strictly vacation time, and it kind of corresponds with Trish and with her aunt. Her aunt has a place at Palm Springs, which is really cool. We go stay with her for a few days, maybe up to a week, and then we make our way down to the coast. So it's kind of a full experience.
It's an annual pilgrimage for you guys.
It's an annual pilgrimage, and we don't mind it. And so it's good. But I'm looking forward to getting home. A lot of stuff that I want to get back to. A lot of things that I'm working on that are very exciting for me personally, because we're working through all kinds of neat things, teaching through the wonderful works of God, the podcast stuff that we're doing with my team and on Christ and Kingdom. We have one more article left in the Reformed Path material. Mm-hmm. We're going to be covering Reformed eschatology. So if you have not yet, make sure to go to Christ and Kingdom, subscribe to that podcast, share the podcast, give us a 5-star review if you are able, and also follow me on X, because on X I have been pushing and putting out all sorts of different things, actually dealing with what we're going to talk about today a little bit with Islam. So that's an important subject right there, and what is happening. But we'll get to all of that. But today, Micah, I wanted to talk a little bit about recent developments that have been announced and have been taking place in the area of AI, which is another of our big focuses here. Mm-hmm. And you just gave me an update on AI and what it can do on this software that we're using right here to record this show. I mean,
yes,
that was remarkable. I mean, it's the ability for Riverside to just take your content, and what does it do?
It basically synthesizes it down to give you, a full-on description of what happens, points, and then chapter markers that you can be put on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. It's it's basically like a personal assistant / copywriter to distill all your content down.
Right, right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the kind of thing, right, that AI promises to do,
Right.
is to make your workflow a lot faster,
That's the good
to make,
things.
yeah, make your workflow a lot more efficient, and to do things that you really don't want to do. I mean, who wants to go through a video, break it down, get all the headings, get all the timestamps of
Right.
everything that you're talking about? That's just a headache. And so in that sense, AI is very useful. That's a remarkably useful and very efficient way to leverage yourself and the work that you're doing on a podcast, on a YouTube video, whatever, and get content out to your people, at the same time. So that level of AI augmentation is great. It's a great extension of what we're able to do with work. But here recently, Micah, there's been, for people that been kind of keeping up with the latest developments in AI, there are a number of voices out there right now that are basically saying that we are getting ready to see a very significant uptick in AI. AI is getting ready to take a leap.
Mhm.
And people from Impact Theory is a podcast where they feature guys like Mo Gadot and others. But they did a remarkable breakdown of, hey, everything is getting ready to change like really, really soon, and no one is even paying attention in terms of the rollout of AI at a level where the intelligence is getting ready to reach some pretty serious proportions. Maybe not technically human intelligence quite yet, but we're getting ready to see a significant leap. And they're talking about everything from in terms of negative effects that people are not quite ready for yet. They're talking about joblessness, number one. I find it fascinating, Micah, that these guys, whether it's Mo Gadot or it's Ray Kurzweil, or whether it's whoever is Habasis is the guy that's now leading uh, Google DeepMind, and he is now talking about that. Yeah, we're getting ready to take a leap forward. We're still maybe a few years away from AGI, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But
Mhm.
something is getting ready to happen in 2025, 2026 that is going to really increase things. Just to give you guys some kind of updates on some things recently, in London, they just rolled out a brand new 5G tower, and it is a new product. It is a new tower that I think they've really been designing, because it just looks like it looks like a landmark. It looks like something that would go in the city, and it doesn't look. We have these huge water towers, in Texas, right, and all over the Midwest and such. And they just strap those cell phone tower the panels.
Yes,
They
they
just
do.
strap them anywhere they can find them. They'll strap them up there, right? Well,
Yeah.
this tower, this 5G tower, does not look like that. It looks like a really sophisticated kind of telephone pole, and it's got certain features to it, and it even has an interaction at the bottom of it where you can plug in your devices and charge. You can even make phone calls right at the pole, and just all kinds of stuff. But the point of it is that they want these 5G towers kind of all over industrialized cities, and certainly in urban areas. And what they're talking about is that these 5G towers that are going to be every half mile, let's say, in a city, this is going to be essential for the rollout of driverless vehicles and things like that. Again, you got to remember, Elon Musk recently revealed his robo taxi, where he says at the end of this year, by the end of this year, supposedly, in Austin, Texas, and in Los Angeles, I believe those two cities, the robo taxi, fully autonomous, no steering wheel, is going to be driving down the streets of Los Angeles and Austin, Texas.
Hmm.
And that's certainly a development. That is not what we've been living in for the last however many years. We've seen little, teasers and this and that, but fully autonomous vehicles driving down the street without a steering wheel is not what we're living in yet. And so that is a new level of technology that's being rolled out, 100%. And yeah, so that's just some of what's happening. And then in addition to that, advances in robotics that are taking place right now. BMW, for example, Micah, just rolled out its new factories. I think these factories were in Germany, where they have humanoid robots that are no longer in trial runs. They are now on the assembly line, and they are 100% humanoid robots, I think made by Figure, that are on the assembly line assembling BMW vehicles now. And they're literally going and retrieving parts, walking over to the car, putting them down, assembling it, and then, handing it off to the next robot. Wow. I mean,
Wow.
that fast,
Yeah. Don't be worried about your job though.
Yeah. Don't be worried about your job. Don't worry about that. The automobile, sector is going to be booming, you may not boom with it, but it's going to boom somewhere,
It's going to boom.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just leads to this whole concept of joblessness. And matter of fact, we've talked about this before, Micah, but in Texas, Austin, Dallas, we have a very large population of Indian immigrants and Indian visa holders that are here on the HB1 visa that are here for tech jobs. Well, it's been being reported even in mainstream media, has just look it up, been being reported that a lot of these visa holders are now out of a job, that their tech company, that company after company is just letting these guys go. Wow. Because even they're here for the tech jobs, and then they find out that these tech companies can't keep up with the tech and they're being outperformed by other companies and such, and that the kind of software these folks were trained on no longer is even relevant. And so they've moved on. So they literally cannot evolve fast enough, resulting in joblessness. Now, my wife's a realtor, so she has a pulse on the housing economy and things like that. And she helps a lot of Indians get the Indian community get housing and stuff like that, which is great. But now a lot of folks are having a hard time, being able to afford things. It is a symptom of the joblessness that people have been warning about. So it's funny, Micah, that I've talked to you and many other people over the years. I've been talking about this. I've been warning about this. I did the new apologetics, about 10 hours of video content warning about what's going to happen in terms of AI. People are still on a spectrum of total disbelief, sarcasm, interest, curiosity, and concern. And the reason I'm in the position of concerned is because I've read the literature where most people have not. I have not, I don't know about you, but I have not met, Micah, very many Christian leaders, pastors, even just people in the church, even guys that are, studying apologetics and trying to engage the culture. I just haven't met a lot of folks that have actually devoted time to reading the hard literature on this issue. They'll watch a YouTube video, they have a superficial understanding of what's happening, but they haven't read the Transhumanist Reader. They haven't read Ray Kurzweil's, Age of Spiritual Machines, the Singularity volumes. They haven't read Yuval Noah Harari. They haven't read The Coming Digital Age by Eric Schmidt. They haven't read Mustafa Salaman's Coming Wave. They haven't read Mo Gadot. They haven't read anybody. And so they have what I would classify as a superficial understanding of this issue. But be not deceived. These things are coming. This technology, this level of technology is coming, and I just don't think we're ready for it.
Well, let me back up and ask you a kind of two questions real quick.
Mhm.
You mentioned earlier that Google is like 25, 26 is going to be kind of pivotal years because of some things I guess are happening faster than they anticipated, and then kind of in correlation with this these people that are brought in on H-1B visas kind of getting ousted from jobs because technology is changing. Is this what Google is talking about? Is this more of an organic? And whenever I use the word organic, I mean AI is improving itself and moving at such lightning pace that it is kind of creating now this H-1B problem that we should have seen coming. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of goes just to what you were just saying about pastors not,
Sure.
reading the material. They should see all this coming, but should our leaders have seen this coming at
Yeah.
all?
Yeah, and of course, if you work in the technology sector, you are forced to be optimistic no matter what. So you're always
Yeah.
going to pitch it in an optimistic way. You read all of the you read all the literature, like I'm talking about with these types of books and these authors,
Mhm.
and they ultimately land at the place of, well, with AI, you'll be able to just kind of do the jobs you want to do, and not kind of jobs you have to do.
Mhm.
But it every book I've ever read acknowledges that we're going to have a joblessness problem. And honestly, I can think of four books off the top of my head by leading thinkers in this area that all conclude with some form of UBI being rolled out, universal basic income. So
Mhm.
some kind of welfare state in the end, that they would say, well, scarcity will be gone. We'll be able to get rid of diseases. There'll be really no poverty because there'll be so much wealth created by the machines that we'll just have enough wealth to basically put everybody on universal basic income. And you really won't even have to work if you don't want to. I mean, it, if you don't think there are theological implications to all this, you're just you're
Sure.
not connecting the dots because we're created for work, right? I mean, we're back in
Right.
Genesis.
Yeah, as
Man,
pastors, we should be able to, or excuse me, pastors should be able to reconcile this back to the Genesis.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're created, the creation mandate, we're created to work, right? Man was created for being, God's representative on planet Earth, and part of that representation does not involve, laying in a hammock all day, and letting a robot do all the work,
It'd be
right?
nice, but
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But in a sense, we can say, well, that was before the fall, but even after the fall, of course, work is noble in the Bible. It's a
mhm,
noble thing. It's good for you. You're supposed to work hard with your hands. You're supposed to bear the burden in your youth, right? And
yeah.
work diligently with your hands. The Apostle Paul said, I labored hard with my own hands, and so, um, th- this whole idea that work will be optional is really kind of in line with kind of one of the big concerns of an AI worldview, which is a post-human philosophy. Post-humanism has a spectrum. There's all the way to the very extreme of that spectrum. Robots completely replace us and surpass us. They surpass us and they replace us. But as we get there, there's also initial incipient stages and forms of post-humanist thinking that causes you to want to essentially give up on certain things as a human being. The famous example that all the transhumanists even use is the famous Chinese Olympic a Chinese Go player, right? The board game Go in China it's far more difficult than chess, and yet an AI algorithm beat the greatest Chinese Go player in seconds. And what happened as a result of that is that he ended up quitting for life, never wanted to play ever again, and just bowed
Wow.
out in complete and total totally demoralized him. And that's happening, Micah, in the area of art. That's happening in the area of music. That's happening in the area of architecture, where people don't want to innovate anymore because machines can do it so much better than we can. It's like you can tell Grok, or you can tell, a different AI agent right now, hey, make me a song that sounds like whatever, Taylor Swift or whatever, and use my voice, and make sure you add a little jazz and a little whatever, and it'll spit something out better than anything you can do on GarageBand. If you spend 2 years working feverishly to try to come up with some beat or some sound, it can do it. It can do it in seconds. It's staggering. And so you don't want to pick up a guitar anymore. You don't want to pick up a synthesizer. You don't want to pick up a stringed instrument. It can put together a symphony for you. And so these are the different ways, Micah, that post-humanist philosophy is already happening in the culture, and it's just going to get more intense. And that's the fear. And it's not me saying that, Micah, because I've told you this on numerous occasions, and I've mentioned this on Red Race Media, but I've encountered from Christian leaders the world over that are just resistant, reticent. They're just they're skeptical. They don't get it. They think it's conspiracy theory. They think it's just over the top. It's fear mongering. And yet, when you read the literature, they're telling you on the face of it that this is coming. They're not even hiding it. They're not hiding it at all.
Yeah.
You've all know Harari in his book Homo Deus asking us, well, what's everybody going to do when you lose your job? Fast forward, he says basically fast forward 10, 15 years. Okay, we're almost there because his book came out several years ago. He says when 40 to 50% of people don't have a job, what are they going to do? And he says, what are we going to do with all the useless people? That's literally the way he talks about humanity.
Yeah.
And a book endorsed by Barack Obama, nonetheless. It's staggering. So we have to come up with a philosophy as Christians of what do you do when the state and with the system that you're living in starts rolling out more and more sophisticated technology, leading to things like joblessness, anti-human ethics, and things like that. Robotics is advancing at an astronomical rate. Right now, all the rage is digital agents. Everybody's talking about it. Sam Altman from ChatGPT, he just did an interview on TED Talk, and if you haven't seen that, just type it in. It just happened like couple weeks ago. Sam Altman from ChatGPT sat down for a conversation with the folks over at TED Talk, and they asked him all these questions. And as a matter of fact, Sam Altman became visibly agitated and even told the guy that was interviewing him, you've asked me about 10 different times, basically, how you can trust me, how you can trust AI, how are we to trust all of this? And Sam Altman's like, you asked me that same question 10 different ways already, and still it's quite an eye-opening conversation. The guys over at TED Talk identified Sam Altman as the one man in the world that might actually have the greatest pressure, ethical, moral, economic, political pressure on his shoulders in the world.
Wow.
Because of what he's created with ChatGPT, what they've created, OpenAI. Because they understand the application, the universal extent of the application of their software and what that's going to mean for everyone. And so this is what I'm talking about, Micah, that things are escalating. There have been significant developments. We're on, I think what's going on right now is more and more people are awakening to this, but they're also wakening up to the fact that we're at a precipice.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole notion now that we're at a precipice is starting to kind of set in on people. Like what's the precipice? AI is going to have it's going to have a iPhone moment. That's what they're calling it. I don't know if you've seen that around, but they're calling it the iPhone moment. So basically what they're saying is that once the software and the hardware merge and you have super intelligent robots everywhere, and then that is kind of scaled up to the social level where, like an iPhone, right? It's like you have this thing and all of a sudden it's like everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket. And that happened overnight, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same kind of threshold is getting ready to take place in the area of artificial intelligence and robotics. And when does that happen? 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now? We don't know. But the theorists, the guys that are theorizing about all of this, that time is getting closer and it's impending. It's coming and it's not going away. So it's only going to get, those things are going to get more intense. And maybe the last thing is digital agents that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That is everywhere. And I told you, Mike, and I've told everybody on this channel that I had the privilege of attending a private presentation by Bill Gates. I won't get into how I ended up in there, but I was in there. And what was the
We don't know how you pass security.
Yeah, I
actually.
won't even talk about that. But I will say this. The entire presentation was about digital agents, and the people that were in that room, some of them very famous, very wealthy, were like, what if we don't want this? Like, what if I don't want a
Wow.
digital agent that just follows me everywhere and knows everything about me and is entangled in every aspect of my life, knows my emails, my text messages. He basically, surfs the internet with me, knows my medical history, knows all my contacts. He knows my health. He knows everything. Like, what if I don't want that? And what was remarkable, and I listened to Gates's response on this. At no point whatsoever did Bill Gates give anybody an option that, yeah, you don't have to have it if you don't want to. No,
Mm-hmm.
that was not even an option. Wasn't
No.
even an option on the table. He just compared it to, well, we all have a cell phone. We're already using Siri. We're already using Gemini and all of this stuff. And so, in a sense, you have already begun using these agents. They're just going to get more intelligent, more intuitive, and more integrated in everything that you're doing anyway. And it's all for your benefit. It's always for your benefit. It's
Yeah.
just all for you to be more effective, and then we
So,
go down that trail.
Emilio, before we go any
Yeah. Go ahead.
further, let's just go ahead and why don't you have Trish call me after this? Because I'm going to probably put my house on the market and I'm going to move to maybe some like Montana, Wyoming, maybe even
Greenland,
Alaska, and just like
Iceland.
completely go off grid.
Yeah. Some people are choosing to do that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, don't just want to talk about the robots, but I tell you what, you do want to run out there. You want to get, I would argue, if you're serious, if you really want to do research, I mean, you got to read 5 books at least. You got to read 5 books at least. You got to read the Transhumanist Reader. You got to read 3 books by Ray Kurzweil. You have to read The Age of Spiritual Machines. You have to read The Singularity is Near, and you have to read The Singularity is Nearer that just came out. You've got to read The Coming Digital Age by Eric Schmidt for a lot of geopolitical aspects of all this, and you've got to read the Transhumanist not the Transhumanist Reader. I said that one already. but there's so many. You got to read Mustafa Salman. Got to read Mustafa Salman's Coming Wave. You have to read that one as well. And if you want to keep going, you got to read Mo Gadot. Uh, if you can get a hold of something by Damien Broderick, Nick Bostrom. I mean, you have to read these people if you want to really truly understand the worldview that is materializing before our very eyes.
Yeah.
And now, as it relates to Christian theology, Micah, I wanted to talk about post-millennial optimism, because what I see, I got to tell you, brother, I can't see anymore how post-millennialism is being allowed to proliferate in the Reformed Church. I don't understand how, different post-millennial thinkers are still out there setting forth a kind of vision for the church that says basically that we need to prepare to triumph inevitably, uh, even if they say, well, it might take 1,000 years.
Yeah, the post-millennials are the evolutionists of the faith.
Yeah.
Just add time.
Yeah, just add time. It takes a little, it's going to take longer than you think. Things can change very quickly. That's what Doug Wilson recently said, for example. I saw something somewhere where he said, things can change really quick. And I'm like, yeah, things can change really quick for the worse, not for the better, But, in my prayer, honestly, Mike, as I've been thinking about this, is that post-mill will kind of wear off. I'm hoping that more and more people will come back to reality, that they'll recognize the kind of world we're actually living in, which is the present evil age. Just to be theological, right? It's Galatians chapter 1 verse 4. It's the present evil age. It is the world system. It is the world comprised of the socioeconomic spiritual milieu of our times. It is the world of fallen mankind. It is the world under the curse. It is the world consigned under the judgment, the wrath of God. And therefore, I mean, it's the reason why Jesus in Peter is called the ark, that Noah's ark is typological of salvation in Christ, because he rescues us from this world. If this world's going to be Christianized, why do we need to be rescued out of it? You see? And it just becomes sort of nonsensical at that point. But here recently, and I'll come back to the kind of world we're living in here in when we talk about our third subject, which is Islam. But recent book by Sam Waldron on Theonomy, I think, is going to be a helpful read. I've been thumbing through it. I've been reading it here and there. Not reading a lot of it because, quite frankly, I already know most of the content that's in there. There's nothing new for me to read in that book. And it's only because Sam wasn't trying to, write some sort of groundbreaking academic book. It's actually quite elementary, which is good because more people will read it. But one of the reasons why the book is good is he addresses, original thinkers as it pertains to theonomy. And he also addresses modern proponents of post-millennialism. So he has a section talking about Doug Wilson. He interacts with Jeff Durbin, and he even talks about James White, which I know James and Sam Waldron know each other. As far as I know, they're friends or whatever. But obviously, sometimes we all disagree on our eschatology and whatnot. But there again, I just hope that as more people read a book like that book by Sam Waldron, that people will start recognizing the superficial nature of that theology, that kind of the post-millennial pom-poms are going to come down, and that people are going to, I mean, Doug Wilson has already moved tremendously. Even according to him, he says he's no longer a theonomist, and that now he identifies as Kuyperian. And so he is now more kind of calling for an Abraham Kuyper approach, which is kind of startling because Kuyper historically has been kind of more identified with a Dutch tradition, a two kingdom tradition. I know for a lot of people this is like, what in the world, right? But it's basically like a different view of Christ and culture, and it's no longer calling for like a Bonson sort of exhaustive application of the law of God in civil government today. That sort of you know kind of hasty generalization that the law of God is to be applied in civil government today. I think with exhaustive application, according to Bonson. But I think that kind of sloppy thinking, somebody like I guess Doug Wilson's now wanting to distance himself from that. And so I hope that that continues. I hope Jeff Durbin eventually will start recognizing the hermeneutical errors, the eschatological and theological errors that are being committed in the theonomic system. I hope he listens to the podcast that I did with Lane Tipton, where Lane Tipton successfully refutes theonomy in its as a thesis in the Theological Journal that Lane Tipton wrote uh, in honor of his mentor and in responding to his mentor, because Greg Bonson was Lane Tipton's friend and professor in seminary, and he taught him theonomy, and Meredith Kline got him out of it. And so, to me, it's important that people recognize that people like Doug Wilson are now, they're seeing that theonomy is just not sophisticated enough, and that somebody like Abraham Kuyper is much more careful, much more profound than Greg Bonson theologically. And I would say they need to go all the way over to Herman Bavinck to have a much better theology altogether. And then eventually they need to arrive at a Vossian worldview, a Vossian understanding of things like eschatology and Christ and the church and the culture. Gerhardus Voss, in his little book on the teaching of Christ concerning the church and the kingdom, that's a very good book. These are complicated issues that it's hard for say one thing has the answer for everything. It's complicated, when we're talking about cultural engagement and things like that. Go ahead.
So just help me out real quick and help me understand some of these categories, or specifically the category that Kuyper is in. Would Kuyper still be a post-millennial, but not theonomic?
Right. Correct. Yeah, Kuyper would be amillennial, and he would not be a theonomist, but he has a very robust understanding of culture. And so, in a sense,
Okay.
I think Kuyper could be, as a neo-Calvinist, Kuyper could be identified as calling for cultural transformation, but without being a reconstructionist. He just wants Christians engaged in the culture, influencing the culture. And Kuyper is the one that, famously said that there is not one square inch in this universe or this world where Christ does not say mine, right? Everything is his, everything is Christ. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We agree with that. But Kuyper and his understanding of culture, in my opinion, went too far. He got, like many people do with their theology, they get enamored with their own thought, and sometimes they get imbalanced or extreme. And I think Kuyper exaggerated cultural engagement to the point that he argues some sort of continuance between the culture down here and how that affects the new creation. Whereas I think Meredith Kline is a much clearer thinker when Meredith Kline makes it clear that it is not our technology and our culture down here that will make it into the new creation. It is truly the redemptive kingdom of God that the new creation will consist of. It is not, transient earthly monuments that somehow make it into the new creation. I just think that's wrongheaded based on scriptures like, Revelation 21, verses 4 and following, where the old things have passed away, behold, he makes all things new, a new creation arrives, those things. So I think it's those things are very, very important. And I think that as much as we can talk about theonomy, we also have to talk about post-millennialism, because of its, what I would argue is a very gullible worldview, because
Mhm.
of its exaggerated optimism, right? That it's trying to give people this optimistic view of Christianity to a triumphalistic point. So it's like your church, your discipleship, your preaching, your teaching, you're preparing the church and the people of God, you're preparing them to triumph. You're preparing them for dominion, when you should be preparing them to endure, to be persecuted, to
Right.
suffer. Yeah, and to persevere as pilgrims and exiles in this world wilderness that we're living through today,
Mhm.
in preparation for our real home, which is not down here. Our real home is up there, right? Just give it 100 years, the debating's over. This wasn't your home. You're gonna Every post millennialist will figure that out in 100 years. They're gonna realize this was never your home, bro.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
eternity was always your home in heaven. Jesus says, "I'm preparing a place for you,
Yeah.
that where I am, there you may be." He doesn't
Mhm.
say, "You're preparing a place for me down here." Doesn't say that. But that's
Hmm.
what post-millennialism amounts to. And it's very serious, Micah, because I tell you what, man, the post-millennial theology it splits churches, it causes division, it
Right.
trips people up, like it causes confusion, it redirects your focus as a Christian. You become very geopolitical. Everything becomes about taking the culture back instead of winning souls. And
Right.
the apostle Paul says, "I become all things to all men, that what? That I may save them." You see, rescue them out of this world system. That's what we're to be doing. We're
Yeah.
fishers of men. You take the fish out. That's what you do. You don't leave them in.
Right. Well, I think that's a modern problem with evangelicalism, is where we always want to interject ourselves back into culture instead of being a separate people that is completely focused on serving and worshiping the triune God. Instead, we've got to also win people over to our way of thinking and influence them, not to become Christians, just to be less heathen, I guess.
100%. 100%. And honestly, you can look at scripture and you can say everything in scripture is preparing us for what? Not triumph, to reign, to rule, to sit on thrones, right? To take
Mhm.
victory of everything around us. It's just not. Everything is at every context of victory and reigning or anything like that. It's always at the redemptive level. It's always at the redemptive level, not the geophysical level. That's never the focus. Go ahead.
I apologize for this reference, but the only thing I can think of is Matt Chandler, yelling, the story of David is not about you, man.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And they
that's
just
right.
think that redemption, or the eschaton is all about them. It's all about them bringing Christ back to rule here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Micah, I tell you what, man, I gave you three things that I wanted to talk about. I'm on vacation, but
It's
I
time
don't
to do
stop
so.
thinking. I don't stop thinking about these things.
Of course not.
Yeah. And I tell you what, one thing I don't stop thinking about right now, which is, like I've mentioned several times here in recent podcasts and recent shows, I I'm not happy with the fact that we have really taken our focus off of Islam.
Mhm.
And the reality is, man, that we are witnessing a radical Islamic invasion in the West. And while we are all just kind of going about our days, the West is being completely infiltrated.
Well, can before you go any deeper in this, can I just kind of share some I'm gonna call them raw stories because I don't really know exactly how to feel about them, but was it 3 days ago, my wife and family and I were all in a large department store here in North Texas, and it was shocking the amount of women that I saw in full I can't even remember what they're called anymore, where,
A
you know, you
hijab or
bear
niqab. Yeah, niqab.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I was shocked, and my wife looked at me and said, "Do we need our passports to be here?" kind of a thing, and I was just like, "Wow, you know, I don't really I don't know how to feel exactly about that." And then a few weeks ago, whenever I was in London, yes, because of some of the conversations that you and I had beforehand, I was fully expecting to see it, and I did see it. And to me, it was more Western than it was Islamic. But I was surprised, kind of like what we see here in the United States, though, is that you see these women who, if you barely catch a little bit of their hair color under the full on brigade, it's blonde hair and they've got blue eyes, and how this Western mindset is being drawn into this very Middle Eastern orthodoxy that it doesn't compute with the Western way of life.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Islam is a culture.
Hmm.
And I used to teach a lot on Islam. I've studied Islam a lot. I've read up a lot on Islam. This is what our political leaders will never allow to be spoken in the ether.
Hmm.
It's the unspoken, unspeakable truth. Islam is not a religion, it is a culture.
Hmm.
It is a theocratic culture, much like the culture of Israel, where what you wear, what you eat, um, where you worship, how you pray, what direction you pray, everything, how you shake hands, how you greet, how you interact,
Mhm.
everything is defined by the Islamic culture and Sharia law. And this is what most people do not understand. The reason why a Muslim man will not shake hands with a woman is because he's following an alternative culture. He doesn't follow the culture of America, right? The reason why Islam will not eat pork, they're not supposed to drink alcohol, they're not supposed to smoke, they're not supposed to celebrate anything pagan, anything that is not Islamic. They shouldn't even be following it. You can go to the 4th of July celebration in our backyard in Frisco, Texas. There's usually 100,000 people out there. You won't find hijabs. You will not find Muslims that want
Hmm.
to integrate and celebrate American independence. They have no use for it. So we're watching a complete culture, um, and we are experiencing the limits of our democracy. This is why it does not matter how conservative you are. Doesn't matter if you're Donald Trump 2.0, 5.0, MAGA 2025, 2028, 2050. It doesn't matter. None of that matters because the limits of our democracy preclude the idea that we can discriminate on the basis of any so called religion. And therefore, we have kind of chopped our own legs off because we've made it a crime to stand against any and all alternative type of worldviews. Why do you think they have satanic statues now in courthouses in the USA? I mean, full statues to Baphomet,
Mhm.
uh, total Satan worship, which is just stupidity. It's not even, it's just a really stupid type of movement or whatever, right? But it's because in our Constitution, you really can't discriminate on that basis, and there's loopholes, and there's way out. There's a way out of it, and so they cannot stop the influx of immigration, to the tune of 300,000 Muslims in Texas now, 300 mosques in Texas now. Now they're building entire city complexes in Texas that are Islamic, Epic City. They're trying to stifle it. But if you look at what Abbott and Paxton and what everybody's talking about, it all has to do with legalities.
Right.
Has nothing to do with actually confronting the actual culture of Islam itself. It's, oh, you violated a building code. Well, who cares?
Right.
Once they get the building code, once they follow the legislation, I mean, you're not going to stop it. And so you see what's going on all over Europe. I mean, just recently this week, Ireland just experienced some of the largest protests that Ireland has ever had. Tens and tens and tens of thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people protesting in the street because they're being Islamicized right in front of their eyes. The Islamification of the West is so powerful right now. And isn't it amazing, Micah, how this corresponds with our last point on post-millennialism? What post-millennialism refuses to acknowledge, and I dare these guys to acknowledge this. I think the post-millennial experiment is over. Move on. All these guys that are out there spewing this triumphalistic stuff, all you need to do is look at the statistics of the population of planet Earth, okay? If you want to grow up and get out of your little Bonson bubble, okay, and actually awaken to the world on a global level, okay, and really talk about the remnant of the elect of God. Last time I checked, all these post-mill theonomy guys, Micah, are Calvinists. They're supposed to believe in election, okay? Well, election is a small remnant of an already small Protestant community. We don't believe in the salvation and the gospel. I don't. Of Rome and the Eastern churches and Coptic churches, which are synergistic, which are works-based and deny the gospel because of that. You start really getting down into these statistics, Micah, when you really have grown-up conversations about this. To talk about triumphalism in the way that post-millennialists do, it is like superficial is not even a sufficient term. Okay, it's just delusional. I'll give you guys this is a statistic from an Islamic scholar friend of mine. By 2050, 1/3 of the world population will be Muslim. 1/3 of the entire globe will be Muslim. That's by then it'll be like what, 10 billion people on the planet?
Yes, we're talking like 3.5 billion people. Wow.
So I don't personally have any patience for that kind of gullible optimism to be proliferated in the church and to be ridiculed. Like, for example, the way that the Apologia guys attacked me on their show and said that I'm a defeated man for something I didn't. First of all, I didn't even post the video. They covered a brother in, at Heritage Grace, the church. He posted this video. I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Posted it in a chat room somewhere. And it was like pile-on day. And then they feature this video on Apologia on a Thursday talking about how defeated I sound and how pessimistic and all of this. And it's too bad. But you see what's going on with Islam all over the world. If you don't, just jump on X, you'll figure it out real quick. It's all on there. There is noise going on. I mean, it's happening in real time, and it's a lot of cultural conflict is coming. I believe we're heading to a time here in the next 20 years from now to next couple decades. I think we're heading to tumultuous times, absolutely tumultuous. I'm sorry. I don't see peace on the horizon, maybe a pseudo peace or something like that. But I see conflict everywhere, and it's going to start in Europe, and it's going to be awful. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be it's going to be cultural shifting. There's going to be mega shifts that go on in the culture where things are going to turn over. um, London. There's a reel on X somebody did just showing city after city and showing the mayors of those cities in London, and it's one Muslim after another. It's one Muslim after another. They are being conquered as we speak, and everyone who is really has their pulse on this, they all recognize it, and yet you get nothing from mainstream media. Fox News covered Epic City and called it an amazing project. They said, "What an amazing project. We'll have to see what happens there."
Yeah. Don't worry, Sharia law won't pop up.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, just wanted to give people an update on all those subjects, and of course, we are going to cover those things multiple times over again. But yeah, man. So that's what's happening. That's what I've been kind of thinking on from an apologetics and theological level, and yeah. So great stuff. Yeah. I'm glad
I'm glad we finally got to chat after a while, and include a lot of folks with us. So it's I think conversations that we have to continue. It's conversations that we've had already a lot, and it just we need to start making some powerful breakthroughs in all these areas, to where I think the church needs to get informed on the AI stuff. Post-millennials need to stop with their fake, optimism, and I don't even know how we combat the Islam issue.
Oh, I tell you what, man, it's incredible. I remember reading a book by John Gilchrist called "Facing the Muslim Challenge" back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
and we're facing the challenges we're facing now. Wow, I tell you what. But I've had several churches, even on this trip, Micah, express an interest to have me out to do a conference on AI and apologetics. And so if you're out there and you want to partner with Red Grace Media to have me out to do an apologetics presentation dealing with subjects like AI and transhumanism, just reach out to us. Drop us a note. Reach out to Micah. Reach out to my wife on Facebook, because she's my calendar anyway, so you might as well reach out to Trish. But it needs to happen. More of this stuff needs to happen, and I hope that more churches will express interest in that conversation. So yeah.
Well, cool, man. It's good talking to you.
I appreciate you, brother. We'll talk real soon after I get out of here, but till then,
if you make it home.
Yeah. If I don't get canceled or delayed here with the weather, but we'll see what happens. But great to be with you guys.
Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
God bless.